Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening and welcome to the January 14th edition of Black Authors Matter TV. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight, and my co-host, Dr. Rhonda Lawson. As you all know, she lives in the DMV. She works for the Department of Homeland Security, and they're working on the transition of our government, which will take place next week, and so she's having to work late. She may be able to log on, but she said most likely no. So we'll see her next week, hopefully. And it'll be after the inauguration. She hopefully should be available. At any rate, we have a couple of announcements before we bring on our first guest. The registration for the 2025 National Black Book Festival is now open, and our registrations have been unprecedented. We're already at 25% capacity, and it's just January 15th. I kid you not, this was an amazing response. So if you're planning to come and be registered, please put down your deposit for the early bird registration as soon as you can. It's only $50 for your deposit, but we expect to sell out very early at the rate that it's going. So that's number one. Number two, photos from last year, we're still posting them on Facebook and Instagram. So we're getting close to the end. We should be done by the end of this month. So we had hundreds of photos to go through. And so take a look at the authors, and we have links to their pages. Most of them are holding their books up. So you'll get to see them and their work. And finally, the Black Authors Matter Children's Book Awards process has started. If you have a children's book that you want to submit, the process of submission lasts for about 6 months, actually, till June. But the earlier you get your work in, the better, then you know it's in there. And if you want to do that, go to BlackAuthorsMatterBookAwards.com. All the information is there. And we have a great lineup for tonight. And we're always excited about our guests. So we want to welcome our first guest. She's no stranger to publishing. Her name is Tiffany Warren. And most of you out there probably heard of her or her work. And she not only is an author, but she does all sorts of other things in the film industry. We're going to talk about a little bit about that too. But she's on tonight because she has a brand new book that just came out. And so we welcome Tiffany Warren back. I think you've been on once before, a while back. So we welcome you back to Black Authors Matter TV.
Hey, Gwen.
Hey, how you doing? And Tiffany was a featured author at the book festival one year. It was before COVID. I don't remember what year it was, but
yeah, it's been a couple of years. Yeah,
it's been a few years. So she's been to Houston to meet the people here. So Tiffany, show us a copy of your new book. It's a beautiful cover, by the way. The Unexpected Diva. It's very, very lovely presentation. And it just came out last week. So
yep, it came out on the 7th. And it's been a whirlwind week. It's been kind of crazy. Like, I fly out to Dallas tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. I was just texting the young lady that's going to be the MC of our event in Dallas tomorrow. I have not packed one thing. I leave at 4 a.m.
on the plane. That's a 2-3 hour flight. Maybe you can get a little
sleep. About a 3.5 hour flight. Yep.
Okay, so you can get some sleep then. Because when you have those 4 a.m. flights, I hate them because, well, when they're really, or even 6 a.m., because you have to get up so early to get to the airport early enough, and you really don't get a good night's sleep because you can't just, unless you're one of those people that goes to bed at 8 o'clock.
No,
which is not me. I'm a night person. So what happens for me, I can't sleep until midnight.
Yeah.
And so then I have to get up at 3 a.m. to get to a 4 a.m. Uber. It's really, and so I'm exhausted by the time I get where I'm going. And hopefully I can get some rest when I get there. But it doesn't sound like you're going to get rest.
No, none.
So what are you coming to Texas for? What is the event?
So I'm going to be at the Cedar Hill Traffic Hickman Public Library. We are doing a night at the opera, which is the launch party for the Unexpected Diva. And it's not really, that's the theme. It's an opera theme. We're not really having an opera. But I will be in conversation with Michelle Stimpson about the unexpected diva, and you guys know Michelle.
She's been on
you
the show, and
Michelle.
She's been on the show 2 times, but I've known her for years.
Yes,
I've known her for
I've known her since the
book.
beginning of
since
my
her
career.
First book.
Right,
we
came out right about the same time. Her
you did.
book.
Boaz
Brown. Yep. We both came out with Walkworthy Press. So it's kind of good that she's doing this event with me. I'm in conversation with her because this kind of I posted on Facebook right before the book drop that this has echoes to my first book drop, just because of how it feels. It feels like new all over again. It's feels like the first time, just because I'm going into a new genre, a new space, bringing readers something different. For me, no one is expecting historical fiction from me, and I really, really enjoyed bringing this story about Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield, the first Black prima donna, the first Black opera singer. She had a 3-octave voice, and I couldn't believe that I had never heard of her. I've been calling her the Beyonce of the antebellum because she toured the United States before the Civil War. People were still on plantations. She actually was born on one in Mississippi. And I was like, the tenacity of her to do this during a time where it was not even safe for Black people to travel without freedom papers on them. And even if they did, they could have been kidnapped. But she toured all over the Free States and the UK with that 3-octave voice. She had a soprano that could shatter glass. And she was amazing. They compared her contemporary at the time was Jenny Lind, who they called the Swedish Nightingale. And that's where her nickname, the Black Swan, came from. So I'm really excited to share her story with readers. And the reception that I'm getting so far is really been overwhelming. The support from readers and my author friends, it's just been overwhelming. And I just really appreciate everybody just supporting this release.
Well, you really explained a lot of the background of this person who I never heard of either. And most of us think about Marian Anderson when we think about opera with, Black women in opera, and who sort of launched it, groundbreaking. But a couple of things. One, Walkworthy Press launched a lot of authors' careers because
Absolutely.
When it started, it was the same time we had our bookstore.
Yes.
And Michelle came to one of our events. You may have been with her.
I came to Kush City. I don't think I was there with Michelle, but I was at Kush City. I think I was there with Angela Benson. Who else was I there with? Was LaTanya Mason, maybe? There was a whole slew of us there. But I was at the brick and mortar Kush City back in the day.
We used to do book brunches, and we would have multiple authors come in. Yeah. And so that was, and Walkworthy Press had a lot of authors during that time. It was like everything kind of happened at the same time.
Yep.
And they were around for a few years, maybe 5 years, something like that. So, but they launched a lot of people's careers.
Absolutely.
A lot of writers' careers. And also the historical fiction genre with Black women as writers and Black women as the featured characters.
Yes.
Um, it has really taken off in the last 3 years. A lot of authors who never wrote historical fiction are finding opportunities in that space, like Victoria Christopher Murray,
Absolutely.
Rashonda
Mhm.
Tate. She's just going by Tate now. But there are many, and I've read a lot of the books. Trisha Thomas was on the show a couple of weeks ago with her new book. And that's actually my favorite genre is historical fiction. So I'm having lots of fun. I mean, I could name them. I could rattle off a lot of names. Angela Jackson Brown. It's just so many people writing in this space
Mm-hmm.
that did not launch their careers as historical fiction writers.
Yes.
Beverly Jenkins has been around forever doing it,
Absolutely.
but I'm glad to see people are bringing individuals to light
Yes.
who we would not know
Mhm.
otherwise. And for the most part, they haven't all been female, but a lot of the people they're bringing to light are females.
Yes. And I'm happy to be able to do that. These hidden figures, they shouldn't be hidden. These women who have these great triumphant stories of, we say Black girl magic, but we have been doing this for so long and finding ways to be joyful no matter what, you know, throughout our history, even during times of oppression, even during times when you might think that there is nothing to be joyous about, we have found spaces to have joy and have things that we can celebrate and have triumph with. And so I am just excited to be able to weave these stories of joy throughout our history, and it's just I love even the stories that don't start on the shores of the United States. Like Vanessa Riley, some of her stories are
Mhm.
in the Caribbean, and I love all of the stories of the women across the diaspora, Black women, all of these stories that we can pull from our ancestors. They all feed us, and I love to read them. It's just there's a wealth of literature right now for us. And
Yes,
when I was growing up, you know, we've always had good literary fiction. Um, for me, I mean, I'm only 50. I say only, like I'm still a baby. But when I was growing up, I always had like, the literary greats. I had the greats from the Harlem Renaissance to read. But I love now that there seems to be a resurgence that we're going back and pulling stories. And now I'm like, my granddaughter is going to have these stories to read. And I'm so happy to be able to contribute to that, to leave a legacy behind as well.
that's true. And there are lots of stories that have never been told,
Mhm.
and people are hearing about them for the first time and hearing the details about them for the first time.
Yes.
Um, yeah, Hidden Figures was another one. There's been a lot in the last, especially the last 5 years. I know Hidden
Yes.
Figures was a little bit before that,
Hmm.
but there's been a lot, and there's going to be a lot. I'm I'm hearing about releases for the future for later this year for 2026. So I'm looking forward to reading more and more things. Now, you also have a film career, and how did you get into that?
So, I've always wanted to do book to film adaptations. I started out doing book to stage adaptations. I did an adaptation of my first book, What a Sister Should Do. I did that on stage in Cleveland, and then I did it in Dallas. And that was so fun. And I've always had a dream of bringing some of my books to the big screen or to the little screen, streaming or TV. And the opportunity arose. I actually went to the American Black Film Festival in Miami one year, and a friend of mine was working at BET. She ended up introducing me to her boss. And at the time, I was not ready. I didn't have a clue of what I wanted to do. I didn't have a treatment, which is like a short synopsis of your book. I didn't have anything ready. And her boss was like, "Oh, what you got for me?" I was like, crickets. I didn't even know what to say. And so I went home and I got ready. I said, because I'm not going to miss another opportunity when it presents itself. And I started to study the craft. How do I adapt books to screenplay? Because it's so funny that I wasn't ready, because when I had been doing faith and fiction retreat, I had set an intention to get ready. As soon as Rashonda had done Let the Church Say Amen, I said, I'm going to get ready. And I would bring in Booker Madison to teach us screenwriting 101, like, because his thought was, if you wrote a book, you should be the one to write the first draft of your screenplay. So he was teaching us how just the basics on screenwriting. But still, I wasn't ready. When that opportunity first presented itself, I still wasn't ready. And so I started teaching myself the craft and how to get ready to present my books the next time the opportunity presented itself. And so I reached out to my friend. I say, hey, I'm ready. Here's my query letter. Send me over to the people now. I'm ready to go. And at the time, they were just adapting Carl Weber's books. I think Family Business. They had done a couple of successful films and they were starting to adapt Family Business. And so the same team that was adapting Family Business, my friend was like, I'm going to introduce you to them and they will, see what you have. And so we had a conversation. It was luckily right during COVID. So things started to slow down during COVID. Everybody was at home. They were doing these Zoom meetings. And so they had time to talk to me. And we had a conversation just like we're having right now about, my books. And they were like, okay, so we want, BET is not really known for like faith-based. So we kind of want, it needs to be a little messy, kind of, we want faith-based, but we don't want it to be too sweet. And I was like, oh, I got you. I got you. So I sent them, what we have been calling Christian friction for a long time. I sent them,
Christian friction.
I sent them.
Good. I hadn't heard that one.
Yes, I sent them some messy, Favorite Son is probably one of my messiest faith-based novels. And that was the first one that we adapted. And that was actually a fun process. That's my favorite one out of the 3 that are on BET, just because I feel like I was most hands-on with that one. And that one starred Jonathan McReynolds and Rotimi as the brothers, and E. Roger Mitchell as the father, the megachurch pastor father who was a hot mess. And it was just a fun process. Robin Givens was the director. And just the music. My favorite thing was seeing at the end of the day, each day, because I wasn't there for the majority of the filming. I got there for the very tail end of it. But at the very beginning, I actually got COVID, so I couldn't go. But at the tail end, I got the last few days I was there. But every day they would send me pieces of what they had filmed during the day. And there is a little snippet of a worship song in the book that I had put in the script. And I didn't expect for them to actually use it. It was a placeholder for whatever worship song they were going to write and stick in that scene. Well, Jonathan McReynolds on the set was like, I'm just going to use this and I'm going to, freestyle and turn it into a song. And so when I got the dailies that day, he had taken my lyrics and turned it into just a little short. It's very short. It's like 15 seconds. And it's, if you watch the movie Favorite Son, it's a duet between him and Kiki Wyatt, and When God is in the Midst of Two or Three. I I will watch the movie. I will fast forward to that part just to watch that, because it's just a little encouraging piece for me, because it's just a little bit of art that I know that's special to me. And so that is, the film journey for me is so intimate when it's a book to film thing and the author gets to see their art on screen. It is very, it's very intimate. And there's not like, it's not a super, sometimes you don't even get that piece of it. Sometimes you just say, oh yeah, here's, I'm signing over the rights to my book, especially if it's a big to-do deal, like with the Netflix or one that's really big. You don't even get to have any part of it. You just get to see the movie at the end of it. But the way that deal kind of played out, I really got to be a part of it. So I really feel happy about that particular film.
That's great. What are the other two that films?
Oh, Favorite Son Christmas, which is the sequel to Favorite Son,
okay,
which ended up with a whole new cast, and you can blame COVID for that. The brothers are different, but it still turned out great. And The Sound of Christmas, which is an adaptation of The Replacement Wife, which also was very special to me because I got to work with my brother, Booker T. Madison, on that. He adapted that one and directed it. So that one was a lot of fun too, because we worked together on that one from the very beginning. We didn't even know if it was going to have a home. We didn't know who was going to produce it, what network it was going to be on. And Booker and I prayed together on that, the whole process of that from the very beginning. So that one is also special to me. Jonathan McReynolds wrote a song for it. It's just, there was so much, all of the movies like had a lot. It's been a great journey for me. Everybody doesn't get to be a part of the process, but I really got to be hands-on for my film. So at least these first three. Now, if someone wants to write me $11 billion check, they can do that. And you will just show up at the premiere and say thank you. That's fine too. But these have been, it's just been an amazing, amazing journey.
And you posted some of the filming, photos.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes when you're doing your work with that, you post it, and I've been able to kind of follow. That's one good thing about social media.
Yep.
If you can keep some of the crap out of your news feed,
right?
I mean, oh my God! Like for some reason, like today, I was like, why does this keep coming up on my news? People, these BBLs. I think maybe I looked at one, and now like every one thing.
When, what you looking at BBLs for? What you trying to tell us?
I think it was the one where Usher was giving the woman a cherry, and she had a humongous. And then now I'm like, please stop. I don't know.
Oh my goodness.
But anyway, I love seeing people's work when they're talking about the phase they're going through. This is what happened today in the different stages and things like that. I know it's almost like you feel like you're a part of whatever they're doing. You're able to.
I enjoy that too. The behind the scenes parts are, that's really fun.
Yes. I'm trying to look at some of the comments to see if we had any questions, just to make sure if we had any that I could answer them before the end, because we only have like 5 minutes left. So yeah, it goes by fast. So The Unexpected Diva, your new book that you, what made you pick? What made you, first of all, decide, okay, I'm going to take a deep dive into historical fiction? And then what made you pick this particular subject?
What made me pick Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield is that I had already done all this research on opera because I had written a book called A Multitude of Sins about a woman who was passing as white to sing in the Théâtre de New Orleans. But it's completely fiction. And then I found Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield when I was researching my next historical fiction about Yolande Du Bois. And her father, W.E.B. Du Bois, had a record company called Black Swan Records. And I was like, okay, it was named after the Black Swan. I was like, well, who was the Black Swan? It was Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield.
Okay.
And I was like, wait a minute. And I stopped the press. I had never heard of her. Well, I knew all of this stuff about opera singing already. Like I already had a lot of research on that. And I told my agent, I said, okay, so let's not submit the book Multitude of Sins because I would like to write about this real opera singer. So we scrapped that book completely. I mean, that book is done. And maybe I'll revisit it one day. It's a completely different story, but I wanted to write about a real person. And so I started doing research on Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield. I wanted to learn about her life. And that's the reason why I did it, because I found this person that I had never heard about. I'm obsessed with opera. I went to see Phantom of the Opera when I was 18 years old. And I've been listening to opera ever since. And so I love opera music. There's a novel that I read. I was about 14 years old. It's an Anne Rice novel called Cry to Heaven about the famous castrati opera singers, young boys who were castrated before puberty so that they could sing those high soprano notes because they didn't allow women to sing opera. And so I've been just since I was a kid. Now, I can't sing a note, but I've been obsessed with it. So that's why I wanted to write about Elizabeth Taylor Greenfield. And so the research started to come together. There was not a lot of information about her life, her personal life. So the fiction of the book is like her romances, what she did in her day-to-day life, what her family life looked like. All of that part in the book is fiction. What is not fiction is her tours, her shows, all of that is documented. There is a great deal of information available about her in the UK press. They followed her around like the paparazzi. As soon as she hit the ground in Liverpool, they followed her around like just like how the British press is now. They were the same way in 1854. They followed her around. Like I found more information on her in British newspapers than I did in American newspapers.
Mm-hmm. So there's probably no recordings of her voice, are there?
There are no surviving
because the
recordings
technology wasn't there yet.
Yep.
I don't know when they I know they had the Victrola, and that was like in the early 1900s, I'm thinking.
Yep, there are no surviving. All I have are descriptions of her voice from the reviews. But yeah, there are no recordings. And I know the songs that she sung from her the pamphlets and the programs from her concerts. So I listened to every song that was listed in every program. I listened to other vocalists sing it, but I have never got to hear her voice. But I could only imagine it in my mind.
Right, and the songs give you an idea of her range. So I'm a soprano. I'm not an opera soprano, but my notes go pretty.
I'm a choir tenor. A choir tenor.
Choir tenor. Okay. Choir. Okay. So you sing
surrounded
by other tenors. Okay. We have quite a few female tenors in our choir.
Mm-hmm.
So probably half. It's probably half. Half of our tenor section is females. So and that's fairly new to choirs, I think. I grew up a PK, and I sang in the choir when I was a teenager, and we didn't women weren't tenors, females weren't tenors.
I think it's because the choir directors now they want the tenors to be able to hit some of those high, the tenors hit some higher notes. And the
Uh-huh.
male tenors cannot do it. They can't
Okay.
they can't do it at all. So
Okay. That could very well be. I need to ask
mhm.
my choir director. Well, Tiffany, we're at the end of our time. Can you
Yes.
show your book cover one more time? The Unexpected Diva. It is a beautiful cover, and it is on my shopping cart for my next order of books. So I look forward to digging into it and finding all about Miss Greenfield.
Thank you
So,
so much for always supporting Gwen. We appreciate you. Thank you so much.
well, you're welcome, and safe travels to Dallas. It's cold. It's cold in Dallas right
No,
now.
it's not cold and it's cold here. In Maryland, it's cold.
Yeah, but I'm think they had some snow in Dallas last week.
Well, it's warm back up. Thank goodness
Oh, okay.
it's a little
Okay.
bit warmer.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, take care and
Thank
have
you.
safe travels, and I'm sure your book will do well.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Okay, good night. Okay, for those of you who tuned in late, my co-host tonight, Rhonda Lawson, she is working late, and so she probably won't be on at all, but we'll look forward to seeing her next week. And she might tune in, but she probably won't. So um, we have a great lineup, and you just heard from Tiffany Warren. And our next guest is Synithia Williams. And I um, learned about her recently and wanted to invite her to the show. This is her first time on Black Authors Matter TV. So welcome to the show. And your name is pronounced Synithia, correct?
That's correct. Thank you
Oh,
so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to be here.
okay, you're welcome. And you are a romance novelist, and you have a new book, I believe, that came out or is coming out next month.
Yes, yeah.
But you have a total of 30 novels altogether.
Yeah, altogether, I've written 30 romances and women's fiction, two women's fiction under the name Nita Brooks, but everything else is under my name, Synithia Williams. And my next book, Frenemies with Benefits, is book
Okay, you have a
3 in a
copy of it.
series. Yeah.
Now, is that teen? Is that young adult?
No, no.
Okay,
I do not
it
write
looks
young
like
adult at all.
okay, okay. It kind of looks like the young adult fiction covers that are out now. Because she looks
Yeah,
kind of young
no.
on there.
Yeah, she's not young. She is a just dumped her horrible husband and is starting over with her business partner slash frenemy that she's known since high school. So it's definitely not a young adult. Yeah,
Okay,
it's like a older woman, late 30s, starting over in life,
okay,
rediscovering herself after she comes out of that marriage that she dedicated so much of her time to when she was young, trying to be somebody different than what she wanted to be, and now she's rediscovering herself.
okay. Now, sometimes braids make people look younger. She has braids on that cover. Braid
Yeah.
braid styles can make a person look youthful, depending on the style. So that may be why I thought she was young, because of the
No,
braid.
I agree. I had a boss tell me that one time. He was like, Synithia, you look really young. I was like, oh, thanks, I guess. It's like, if you don't know what to say, just say your hair looks nicer.
Yeah. Now you've written 30 books, and that means you've been writing for quite some time, since
Mhm.
2012. 2012, was
My
it?
first book was published in 2012. Yes. Yeah.
And so what made you launch your writing career? What was that first book that made you say, I'm gonna write this book, and then you kept going? What was the first book about?
So my first book was called You Can't Plan Love. It came out in 2012. So it was like 2010 was when I decided I wanted to actually pursue my dream of writing. I've always read and loved romance novels, and I
Mhm.
was always writing stories. I still have the handwritten novels I wrote back in high school, 300 pages handwritten. I still have all that stuff
Oh,
here in my house, in my office. So I've always wanted to write, but you go to college, you get married, you have kids, and you kind of put your dreams, so to speak, on the back burner. And then in 2010, I've told the story before, a coworker decided they were going to go to law school, and that kind of just push something to me, like if you can just decide that, hey, I want to start over and go to law school, there's no reason why I can't finish a book. And so I took one of the several ideas that I had been working on, and that was what became my first book, You Can't Plan Love, that was published within a e-first publisher called Crimson Romance. I wrote 7 books for Crimson Romance, and that one, it was a career woman who didn't believe that love was important. And so she was engaged to a guy that she was checking all the boxes on paper. Like, he's a good match. I want to be married and have kids one day. He checks all the good boxes. So I'm going to go with this guy and not worry about love, because emotions and romances burned me in the past. But then new boss comes in and he looks good in the suit and he makes her feel things she's not supposed to feel. And I'm messy. So that story was like all kinds of soap opera drama, which is what a lot of my books have
That's
in
what
it.
makes people turn pages.
Yeah, yeah. I love messy stories because I grew up watching soap operas, and so I like to put twists and turns. And so that was the start. When I in 2010 decided, 2012 was published, and I've been rocking and rolling and knocking out stories ever since.
Okay, so is there a particular theme or character type that you focus on? Sounds like career women. Sounds like mature women.
Yeah, I've
That's what it
never
kind of sounds like.
yeah, I've
That's
never written young adult, teen, or anything like that. I like series. I like to focus on families. So if I have a series, I like to look at whether it's brothers or sisters, or brothers and sisters, friend groups. So I like to focus on that, because I think not just the romance between the main characters, but the love and the people who surround them can really affect the relationship. The relationship you have with your parents, the relationship you have with your siblings, the relationships you have with your friends, all of that shapes how you view love and romance and how you may approach a relationship. So I like to show those different stories through that. I also like to show women who are maybe not perfect. They might be imperfect in some way, but they still learn to love themselves. They still learn how they can accept love and achieve their dreams and their goals, and see that they're worthy of a happily ever after. So I think those are some of the themes that I like to put in there. And then, like I said, when readers are like, where did you come up with that idea? It's like, I was just writing, and then my brain said, let's go left with the story and add something different in it. And I just kind of like to do that just to be entertaining, because I just like to be entertained. So I guess that would be kind of like the main themes and characters that I have in the books that I write, that I focus on.
now the romance genre has like a lot of writers and readers. It is a very vibrant genre. It's one with very specific readers because um, a lot of people don't read romance, but the romance readers that love romance really eat it up. It's really amazing how big a genre it is. I'm every time I think that we've had the romance writers on this show, that because we this show is 4 years old, we've had over 700 guests. I don't know which number is
Awesome.
romance, but it's a good number out of the 700. And every time I think we've had all the ones who really are selling books and written a lot of books, we find some more. Yeah, I mean, and they come. We do keep our ear to the ground as far as what's new, and but sometimes social media reveals a lot.
Mm.
Sometimes it's people talking about authors on social media or posting, but it's a very vibrant genre. And it's been vibrant for a long time. My mother used to read romances, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
I'm not a romance reader. it has to be specific for me to. I like historical fiction, mysteries, and thrillers. I'll read romance every now and then, but um, it's very, it sells a lot of books. I'm amazed because for me the plots are so similar, but that's what people want. As people who read romance, they want the
Yeah.
happy ending. They kind of want predictability. It seems like because the
Well,
plots
see,
are
the
based.
only as a writer, a romance writer, I view the happy ending as being the predictable. Because if you look at mysteries, there's, usually it's somebody got murdered, you're figuring out who did it. A lot of genre fiction follows whatever their themes are. If I'm reading a horror, I want whatever it is to scare me. If I'm reading a mystery, I want that mystery. I want to find out who did it and why. If it's a thriller, I want that thrilling action that's part of it. And I think that's why romance readers like romance. There's enough, to me, bad stuff happening in the world, where
Okay.
I don't want to read a book that's gonna make me sad at the end. And there's, to me, another reason when I started writing, there's not historically has not been a good representation of Black people in love in media. And I
Mhm.
wanted to just write stories that reflected what I saw in life. My parents, my aunts and uncles, my friends who are together. Black people do meet, they fall in love. And then I'm also fascinated by how people get together. When I'm around coworkers, friends, or I meet new people, I'll ask the question, how did you meet? Right? How did you ask this person out? If they're married, how did you propose? And a lot of people will say, oh, romance is just so fake, it's not real. Where I've talked to people and I've heard the stories real life, where someone who never received Valentine cards when they were a kid, they filled a box of Valentines and proposed to their wife. Like that's a real life story. If you put it in a romance novel, someone would say, "Oh, no one would do that in real life." No, this stuff happens in real life. And so I kind of push back when people say romance can be like a fantasy and not real life because I've seen it and I ask those questions and I just enjoy something that's going to make me happy. I read other genres. I'm listening to a historical fiction novel right now. I have a friend who writes thrillers and I read and listen to her thrillers. So I read other genres, but I go back to romance because I just want to not be sad, mad, or upset at the end of the story. Or I really hate when I'm reading a story or watching a show and then they fight so hard to get back together, like you show them together and then they break up or split for whatever reason and they
Yeah,
fight
or
all
somebody
this to get back
died.
together and then they die. And then she's left with a kid, and kids are great. I have two of them, but it's like, oh, we're supposed to feel better because you fought through all this for him to die, and now she's left to raise a kid. So I just like the happy ending. I want to see them together.
Okay, well, you did a very good explanation, and you are correct. There are some formulaic pieces in the other genres too. So, mystery is like that. But even with mysteries, they have to move. For me, the
Mhm,
mystery, the story has to be interesting. Like it
mhm.
can't just be a lot of descriptions and nothing happens. But I feel that's one reason I don't watch local news. It's all bad. That's all bad.
That's why I don't
It's
watch national.
the
I love
worst
local news.
in town. All the worst things that happened in town that day. That's what's on the news. Unless you look at the weather and sports. That
Right.
but so to me, it's like the leading story is always, you know, dead body found today in a dumpster,
Mhm.
details at 10 or whatever. I mean, it's just all bad. But people say, well, you need to know what's going on around you. Well, this is my response to that. The stuff on the news has already happened. So it's not like you're giving me a warning that something could happen. It already happened. So it's over.
Only if the serial killer's still out there. It's like, look over my shoulder.
I'm always careful. That's my word. Be careful all the time. I'm always looking around. I know this is off topic. I do that sometimes, but I was at Walmart recently at the bank, and this man came in, and this was right after the guy shot the man in the back in New York.
Mm.
It was like the next day. This guy walked in with a backpack. He looked like he was, homeless, and he was looking around like he was looking for something. I kept my eye on him until he got out of my eyesight. And the lady at the bank said, "You see something?" I said, "Yeah, I'm looking. I don't want to be caught." People say, "Well, I didn't see it coming." I want to see whatever
No,
it
keep your head
is.
on the swivel. Look left and right and left again.
You all right. Romance is there is romance that doesn't get the exposure. Black love and Black romance, it doesn't get the exposure that it should. So some people can, because of that, they think it's just, it doesn't really happen, all that, but
Yeah.
it does.
And
It does.
I've heard people say that, and it's one of the reasons why honestly I just kind of prefer going to events where people are where romance is up front and at the forefront, because I've been to other events and people are like, "Oh, I don't read that. That's unrealistic. I don't like that." And then I have to, give the same spiel I just kind of gave before. And then usually, and I've had even coworkers or other people who say, "I don't read romance. I don't like that." And I said, "Well, tell me what kind of TV show you like." And I can find a romance novel that can still fit in that. And then, or I'll recommend one of my books if it fits in that. And I had one coworker, she's like, "I don't read romance. I only read horror. I don't like that sappy stuff." And then I gave her, I think I recommended, I think it was either Forbidden Promises, my Jackson Fall series. And then, she's like calling me, "Synithia, I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning reading your story. I didn't think I liked this stuff." And it's like, no two romances are the same and everybody writes differently. So if you've given romance a try and you didn't like that author, even if it's me, that doesn't, I would say don't write off the whole genre. Try different authors, and there's different types of romance. So I like sci-fi fantasy stuff. So sometimes I'll read romances that have that element, paranormal element. People who like historical, there's historical romances, so you can still get that history piece, and all of the social norms that come with that, but also have a romance. If you like murder mysteries, it's the romantic suspense. So you've got the mystery, the suspense, and everything. And so that's what I try to tell people when they say, um, I don't typically read romance. I want to give it a try. I say, well, think about the kind of TV shows and the stuff you like, and I could probably direct you to some romances that may fit in that, because there's so much out there. And when I was coming up, I grew up in a small town in South Carolina. I didn't see a lot of romances with Black people
Mhm.
together. And I didn't really discover Black romances until I actively tried to get published and started looking for it and got introduced to other romance authors. And so now I just love it so much and now it's so much easier to find romances that feature Black people falling in love. And it's all the plethora, whether you want them to struggle to find their love or you just want good vibes and chilling and they just easily fall in love. It's the whole range that's out there. It's not just one type of love story. And so I definitely am glad that now people can find that and can see that. Whereas who loved romance, I had to, just deal with the romances that only feature, white couples in the books. And now I get to read romances that more reflect the world that I live in, which is the kind of stories that I wanted to write that reflected regular people living life, falling in love, unless I write my, big soapy, like my Jackson Fall series is like a rich family out of North Carolina, something like that. Or I just enjoy being able to show that, Black people can find and they have found love throughout the years and they can still do.
Well, I agree that, like I said, every time I think that we've had everybody on the show that has written some romance or that has written multiples, because we try to bring on people that have more than one book. Although some people that are just getting started, we have them on too. But this one, I think we've had them all on. Then I find some more. So
there's so many of us out here.
People writing. Now I read Beverly Jenkins. She does the historical fiction romance, and so I like the history part, and she weaves them together. And she's probably she's among the oldest in terms of career, longest career in that historical romance with African American characters. Although J. California Cooper did some of that too.
Yeah,
her work.
I haven't read
She passed away
California.
a few years ago. But her work, her writing is very good. She was a very good writer.
I love Beverly Jenkins. Yeah,
one of her J. California Cooper's books. I can't think of the title right now, but one of her books was one of my favorite books of all time. I mean, it's just amazing. The Wake of the Wind. The Wake of the Wind. If you get a chance to read that I think it's still in print. It should still be in print. But she was a very good writer. She did a lot of historical, and she did some that were kind of humorous. She had some comedic things that she wrote. Her writing was different. I haven't read anybody else that wrote like she did, and so her writing was kind of in its own lane, so to speak.
Gotcha.
So I think we need to see also more Black love on screen in films too, and maybe that will come with so many books being written. Maybe that'll translate to film.
I wish it would be so great to see.
Because usually it's fiction. Usually, this is like this. That's not romance. This is not romance. But that's what they portray. And I only have 2 novels. They're not romance, they're mysteries. But I do have a couple in my books that's in both. It's a series, it's 2 parts. And my position was, I will never write a novel with a Black couple that's at like loggerheads. Like it's enough of that. And even if somebody says it doesn't exist or it's made up, so what? Everything's made up. All this stuff is made up.
Newsflash, all the fiction is usually made up.
Why not make up something happy where people, give an example, even if you don't know anybody. And my husband and I, we've never been. We've always done everything together. So then he was very intentional about marrying me. I'll say it like that. So he was very. He knew he wanted it. I didn't. I thought he was moving too fast, but we've been married 32 years, so that's.
Right. And see, you can put in a romance where people meet and the guy, and those are some of the stories I really enjoy, like when the guy falls first.
It's always better. It's always better. That's really the way it's supposed to be.
When he falls first and he's like, oh, I know.
Then he knows. And so he's gonna work harder. If he's going to pursue. And I just think that's a better position for the woman.
Yes.
It's the better position for her. So
if you know he's invested, and I recently, it was in October. I spoke to, so I'm still in South Carolina. I live in Columbia, South Carolina. I spoke to an English class, at University of South Carolina. And they were asking me different questions about writing in my novels. And one of the things I didn't think about till these kids, young adults, were asking these questions. Another theme in my story was, to your point of that conflict, is that I want to always show that you feel safe in a romantic or sexual relationship in my romances. And that's not something that a lot of young people get. And they don't see that right? A lot of the movies from that I grew up with, 80s and 90s, is like, you know, push you against the wall and that's it, and not really showing safety or making jokes or whatnot, where I want, especially young girls, if they're reading my novels, to know that you should always feel safe with whoever your romantic partner is, where you
Yeah.
feel comfortable to open up with that person. And I read a lot of romance and I read a lot of love scenes growing up. And so that kind of framed the fact that I wanted to write love scenes where people have overcome that, or where they are realize that even if they don't they change their mind or this isn't safe for them, that there was somebody who they can trust in that situation. And so that's another thing that I want to show, because I do have open door sex scenes in my book, but I want it to be scenes where you can see that it's not dirty, it's not bad, it's not being forced upon the female character. It's something that she feels comfortable with doing and she's safe in that situation as well. Because I think that is a very important part to show in romantic relationships. And so yeah, there's fun parts in the books, but they also reflect, what a healthy relationship should look like, is what I try to show. And I didn't realize I did that until I was talking to that class and they were specifically asking me about consent. They were really smart young adults and asked some really good questions about writing romance. And so, yeah, that's another thing. I don't want to show, they may have conflict, they may not agree. Like in my first book in this series, The Secret to a Southern Wedding, where she is coming home to stop her mom's wedding and he is happy his dad's getting married. And so they're adversaries because she wants to stop the wedding, he wants his dad's wedding to happen. So yeah, there's conflict there, but they're not just trying to sabotage or physically or truly hurt one another. And so that's what I like to show, even with my quote unquote enemies to lovers. They're not your enemy because they are like bullying or trying to kill you.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
You
They're
know,
not being
just
physically violent or anything.
right. You've got natural conflict that they have to overcome.
Yeah, I'm reading just some of the comments, and one person said that they had to read Danielle Steele. And I remember reading Danielle Steele, and that's one of the, when you read three of her books, you read them all. So that's why I stopped.
And I never read Danielle Steele growing up.
And
I saw the
I
books.
read her. And then somebody else said that's who she started reading Black romance. Um, oh, Beverly Jenkins. And then
Mm,
somebody else, Tony Benita, she watches the show most weeks. She said, read Homemade Love by J. California Cooper. I
gotcha.
think I read Homemade Love, but the one that hit me the most is The Wake of the Wind. Um, it was something else. Oh, they said the man is supposed to love you more than you love him. I've heard women say that, and generally I agree with that. Just, biblically, the man who finds a wife, that means he finds. And this is my wisdom after just seeing things over my life, that if it's his idea, he's going to be more on with it. He's going to be more dependable. You know what I mean? He's
Mm-hmm.
going to be, if you're trying to pull something out of somebody, you can't pull love out of a person. You know
No,
what I
you can't.
mean? They
Yeah.
have to, and it really, if it's his idea, then he feels better about it. Let me put it like that. And the whole thing happens differently, and that's why I have never approached a man. Now I'm old school, but I said the man for me, if he's for me, he's gonna approach me. And if he's waiting on me, it'll never happen. So I wouldn't even know where to start. That it was like drilled into us as kids, girls. You don't call boys. You don't call boys. We were drilled into not pursuing. It didn't mean we didn't have, little boys we liked and things like that. But it
Yeah.
was always, the onus was always on the boy, and then the man as I became a grown up. So the times changed over time, and now my daughter, she's just recently engaged.
Oh,
So
congratulations.
she met someone that pursued her. That's what I said. The man for you, he will be unambiguous about you being the one for him. That's what
Yeah.
and that's what I tell women in general.
Yeah. And if you feel like you're in an ambiguous situation and you are confused, ask. I
That's
mean,
true.
you know what?
Yeah,
Communication is very important. And a
it
lot of
is.
people don't want to ask the hard questions. And if you want something, then speak it up and say it. And if they don't want it, believe them and then
Yes,
make your decision
believe
from
me.
there.
Like I said, you can't pull love out of a man. And it doesn't take him 5 years to know if he wants to get married. So these are just little tips. It doesn't take that long for them to know. They pretty much know early on. I've been married twice. The first one was a mistake, but he still knew early on. It doesn't take 5 years. That's it. So anyway, Synithia, we've had a very lively conversation just about love and romance in general. And thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Show
Thank you
us
for
your
having me.
cover one more time, like close to the screen, so people can see Frenemies with Benefit.
So, Frenemies with Benefits. Yes, she is a bed and breakfast owner. He is one of her business partners, supplies flowers for the wedding, where she just found out her husband has cheated on her. She found out about that in book 2. And so now she's divorced, starting over, and why not start a scandal? If her ex-husband started a scandal, so let's start their own scandal in the small town. So
Okay, thank you so much for being a guest on the show and continued success in your writing career.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, good night.
All right, good night.
So we are moving right along, and we have another romance author, but this romance author everybody knows, and also she's writing other stuff now. So she started off being a romance writer with dozens of books, and then she said, "I'm going to write some other stuff too." So anyway, Jacquelin Thomas, welcome back to Black Authors Matter TV. It's been a minute since you've been on, so we're getting caught up on what you're doing now.
How are you? Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And have you written your hundredth book? Did I see that somewhere?
Yes, ma'am. It came out in October. Safe House Security was the 100th book.
Okay, well, congratulations on that. I'm amazed when people can come up with 100 stories or even 30 stories. I don't, I'm Fiction is not my strength. So nonfiction is my lane. That's actually the book that I'm working on now. Um, that I hope to come out this summer.
It
And then
will.
I do children's books too. Um, but even with that, those are stories about children in business, doing business. I try to, I want to teach children how to be entrepreneurs. So my children's books are along those lines, which is really not fiction, if you know what I mean. It's really,
But that's okay. Those books are very necessary. All of the books, all authors, different genres, it's all very necessary. And you can even write 100 nonfiction books.
that's a more of a possibility than fiction, because fiction takes me a long time to write, and I don't have enough years to do 100 of those. So anyway, a nonfiction I could do in 6 months because it's research based writing. You start with the premise, and then you do the research to support whatever your premise is. And so, but normally I might work on the research for years. I have notebooks where I do research on
Yeah.
topics, and then I'll pull the trigger on the actual book when I'm ready. So anyway, your new book is called King David, and it
Yes.
came out in December. So do you have the copy of it so they can see the cover?
Yeah, I have the proof sitting here. This is the proof copy, so it has that little band, unfortunately.
Okay, wow. So he got the crown on him and everything.
Yes, I did. It's a biblical. It's a remake of a retelling of the biblical story of King David, and
Oh,
so set in
okay.
the music industry. He's an R&B singer, and actually that's his persona when he goes on stage. He wears the crown, he wears the furs, he wears the bling, and he calls himself King David.
Oh, okay. Now, this is a standalone? Is it part of a series?
It's a standalone, but I will have more books dealing with the retelling of biblical stories. Like the next book would be Joseph's story,
Okay,
but they're
wow.
standalone. Yes.
So you're bringing those stories to and putting in a contemporary setting.
Yes, yes. It was something God had put on my heart to do years ago. I don't know if you remember, but I think back in early 2000s, I came out with Jezebel, which was one of the first
Hmm.
ones, which was
Hmm.
the retelling of Jezebel in the Bible. Then there was Redemption, which was the retelling of Hosea and Gomer's story. Samson, which of course is Samson and Delilah's story. So I've done that for years. Then I stopped because it seemed, with the market, things change and things shift. And so I went back to writing contemporary romance and then, doing young adult and then later branching off into suspense. So I'm kind of going back to my roots, my Christian roots, and doing these stories because these are stories that like King David was actually written a few years ago. I had to update it and make it more current. But I wrote this years ago, and my agent tried to shop it, and we were not successful in finding a home for it. And so it just kind of sat, on the shelf. And recently, when I did the 100th book, I was really thinking about retiring as a writer and focusing on the my other budding career as a counselor, and it just wouldn't let me go. And so I said, you know what? I can put this out myself.
Oh, okay. Now, because I saw the line on there, and that's a KDP
Uh,
proof, because all my books are through KDP, so I know how they
yeah.
look when you get the proof. But
Yeah.
that's a
So
beautiful cover.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was very particular about the cover. I wanted a certain look, and I felt like it would draw people because I know some people like me, I am drawn in by a cover, I'll buy the book.
That's true. That's true. They say you can't judge a book by its cover, but you can, and people do.
Yes.
And to me, the cover means you put effort into it conceptually. You thought about it, you did some drafts, you did something, you spent some time on what it should look like. Um,
Yes.
and some one thing about self-published authors or self-publishing that some people miss completely is your cover has to be on point.
Yes.
You can't try to tell the story on the cover with 10 different stick figures, and there's too much going on. It really needs to be one central focus. That's normally a book cover is one person, sometimes two people. If it's a romance, they'll have a couple, but no, but then the couple is a central focus,
Hmm.
and it can't be busy, and
Yeah.
it
It
should
takes
look
someone definitely with
right.
talent when it
Mhm.
comes to graphic design.
It
You know,
does.
um, it took me a couple of months to really nail down this cover, and I had the vision for it. Basically, I created the cover, and I'm very proud of it.
Well, it looks really good. And some like I don't have any art graphic skills, but I know what looks good. So I'm good at concepts.
Hmm.
So and I know what I want conceptually, but some people just have a they have a talent for the art
Yes,
of it.
yes, that
And
gift. Mhm.
they do. And we all have gifts, and that's not mine. But I know what looks good. Like I know what looks
I
good.
can't say it's mine either. I felt really lucky to come up with this cover. I still wasn't sure how the public would receive it, but I've gotten a lot of compliments on it. People seem to really like it. I'm more concerned about the story.
Mhm.
I want the cover to be great, but I want the story to be even better.
Someone said Oh, Tony Benita said, "You are not going to retire from writing." Tony took the words out of my mouth. I'm like, "You can't retire from writing. You can't. We're not going to let you."
No, I know. And I love writing. I will always be in this world. It's just my other love is dealing with mental health, and counseling. And that is something I put off for years because of my writing career. And so now I want both kind of because I really, with the mental health, I want to specialize in narrative therapy, which is related to writing and writing about your traumas and how to reframe what you've gone through. And so I'll still always be involved in some way with writing, but mental health is just really important to me as well.
Okay. Now, the social book club, I'm not sure that, but they follow our page. Someone from this said that they will not buy a book if they don't like the cover.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm trying to think, that's probably true for me too.
Mhm.
If the cover is bad, and I guess bad can be relative, but a cover can stop me from buying a book.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a couple of times for me when, and particularly if it's someone I hadn't really read before, um,
Yes,
because
yes.
I love a good story and I'm willing to take a chance on a new author, or someone new to me. And so, but if the cover doesn't speak to me, I'll probably walk past.
Because to me, if you didn't take time on the cover, then now this is just my bias. If you didn't take time on your cover, I'm thinking you didn't take time on your book, and you probably didn't take time on editing the book. So it's just like a total no for me. Like,
Wow.
I can't, it's very difficult for me to read a book that hasn't been edited.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean like the final round of editing. Some of them, if they hasn't been like edited at all, like if it's like there's hardly any editing, I won't go past like a chapter. I just can't. It's just
Yeah.
too much. But some books they still need that final round. But if it's a good story, I'll keep going.
Mhm.
But the cover it has to look like you invested something in it, time, money, and it doesn't have to be a huge amount of money, but you have
You
to
want it to look professional.
invest. It has to look professional. You don't
Yes.
want it to look self-published because
Right.
self-published, it has it it started off with challenging reputations. It's
Yes.
got better as more mainstream authors are doing hybrid. They're self-publishing and they're doing publishing contracts. Because
Yeah.
in the old days, the publishers wouldn't let you
No, they
self-publish.
didn't. Because, I've been published since 96, and back then you couldn't do both. Now I'm glad that I have the option because I'm a hybrid author as well.
Yeah.
I've published other books previously, and it's great to have that. I prefer being traditionally published by choice. There are authors who are independently published that enjoy it, that are making a great career out of it, and
Yeah.
they don't want to be published, be with a publisher, and I think that's fantastic. With me, I guess because I started off on the traditional side, um, it may have made me maybe even a little lazy. I wouldn't say I would say not necessarily lazy, but I'm just not very outgoing, I guess you would say, when it comes to like social media and marketing and things like that, that is not my gifting. So
Mhm.
I've always had the backup of publishers to help and help with that. Because people will tell you right now, I'm terrible with social media. I am hardly ever on there. I don't go on all the time because life happens and I have a life. And so, I'm so focused and I'm also in grad school. So that takes up a lot of my time. I volunteer. So that takes up a lot of my time. So I don't go on social media like I should. But I have great people that will send me a little text. You need to post something. You need to post your book.
Yeah,
So
people,
being
there
completely
are
transparent
eyeballs.
and honest.
There are eyeballs on social media, but you have to, you don't let it become like a rabbit hole that you just like go in, like get in the vortex of it and you can't get out. I try to get on and off. I don't
Yeah.
try to spend hours on there because it's a lot of crazy stuff, and it's
Yeah,
a lot
I
of
get
angry
it.
people. It's a lot of angry people
Yes.
posting angry stuff, and I
Yes.
don't.
Yes.
I'm a happy person, and I want to keep it that way. So I try
Me,
to stay away from the anger.
me too. So I'm not
You
on
can
there
always be
much.
angry about something if you choose to. You know what I mean? You can
Yeah.
choose to be happy too, and
Yeah,
so
I like good news. I like good news. I
yeah,
like
me
encouraging
too.
news. You want to be encouraged daily. And so, you want to go on and find something encouraging and not something distressing, or triggering. And so you're right. So I just don't do it because I know what my triggers are. I know what I need for me. And one thing about me, I believe in self-care.
You have to. You have to really invest the time in self care because if you don't, it won't happen.
No, it won't.
you know. And so sometimes as women, we can put ourselves last, and we shouldn't do that because I had a conversation with Angela Jackson Brown when she came on to talk about her book. It was right before Christmas. And we were just talking about how women tend to be the glue that holds families together.
Yes.
And she was saying, and I agree with her, that we need to start putting ourselves actually before our families, because if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't take care of our families, and they're depending on us for
Well,
that.
you can't pour from an empty cup, and that's the thing that we
Yeah,
forget.
yeah,
We pour into everybody, but who's pouring into
to
us?
us,
And
right.
so I'm very big on that because that's one of the things, I teach people, is work-life balance. And so I have to take my own advice, again, because I'm a mom, I'm a grandmother, I'm a student, I'm a writer, I volunteer, I do groups twice a week. So it's a lot. And so it's very important because I'm pouring into all of this, but I have to make sure there's somebody pouring into me. And thankfully, I do have a great support system that pours back into me.
Yeah, and that's very important. So I'm just looking at some of these the comments. uh this this is the social book club that's uh, that's on watching the show. It's a whole rabbit hole. She says, I'm a reader and I've been getting my book recommendations from social media. And that's true. And well, this show is on social media.
Yes.
So a lot of people hear about books on this show. I know for me, I hear about books because of this show. And because of this show, my book buying budget has tripled over the last 4 years, but it's all good. I've been introduced to some amazing writers um, that are putting out some really quality work.
Well,
Which,
social media isn't all bad. It's what you make it, I honestly believe. And you really just have to be mindful of what you're letting into your spirit and everything. I've heard about that's really when I go in and I see books, because the first thing I do, if it comes up in my timeline, I'm going to automatically share it because I want to support that author. And a lot of times I've found new reads because of that.
and we find guests for this show because of social media.
Yes. So there's a good part of it,
That's a good
but
part.
there's also that other side.
It is. It's the angry side or the sleazy side, and that's a whole nother thing.
The topic. Yeah.
Side. And this is this thing now, and it's the algorithms on social media. When you click something, they show you. It's like you get bombarded with it. You click it once, then every other thing. So I clicked, and I like to cook, and I'm a
Yeah.
really good cook. And I like to see what other people are cooking. Every now and then I learn some new ideas from other people's cooking tips. But there's this thing now where people are just throwing stuff into a crock pot and calling it a dish. Okay, just like throwing it on, just putting it. They don't wash the protein. They don't wash the chicken before they put it. They just take it from the package and put it in the crock pot. See that to me, I'm out from there. But then they just throw a bunch of stuff in there and call it, and then they take it out and it doesn't even look appetizing, and then they start eating it. And so now it was like
Collect recipes. I just collect recipes. I don't look at them cooking it because the way they cook it and the way I cook it may be totally
it's
different.
gonna be, that's
So
true.
I'll go out and I'll pick out, I'll see something that comes in my feed with a recipe and I'm like, oh, I want to try that. So I'll save the recipe, but I don't want to watch anybody cook anything because like you might make me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, it
You
does.
know.
And no, I mean the seasonings and all that. So anyway, but that's, if you, I guess if you click books, maybe that's why I see books too, because I'm a part of several book groups.
Mhm.
I'm probably 10 different groups of people. I'm a Black Authors Network, Black Women Authors Network. And then there's 3 or 4 book clubs that it's really not a book club in the traditional sense,
Right.
but it's a book club. It's like a group of people, and it's thousands of them, and they'll post books that they are reading now or whatever. And it's a good way to know about what's out there. We used to
Yes.
have to go to the library or whatever, the bookstore, to actually find stuff, and they have limited amounts of our literature.
Yeah.
So social media really has opened some doors in terms of that.
Yeah, that's the great part of it. In discovering, like you said, the book clubs. We used to have to back when I first started, when I sold my first book, Donna Hill, Frances Ray, and Gwen Foster emailed me copies of their spreadsheets with all these book clubs on there that they
Oh,
had put together. And so they were saying, this is for you to start your mailing list and then you just pay it forward. So what we did back then, whenever there was a new author, we would add whatever we have on our list and pass it to the next author so that they could have a mailing list. Because back then, we actually mailed out
you had,
bookmarks
you
and
had to snail
postcards,
mail
things
everything.
like that. Yeah. And so I'm thinking now I don't have that. And years ago, my computer crashed or something and I lost all of that. And so I was like, how do you start all over again looking for these book clubs? But social media has helped with that,
Mhm.
because they have web pages. They have online,
Yeah,
now
yeah,
we have
Facebook groups
online
or
book
everything.
clubs and things like
Mhm.
that. So again, there's a lot of positives to social media. And I would say it probably outweighs probably the negative. It's just a lot.
It's not like it's like no,
Yeah.
it's but I hear a lot about book talk on TikTok, but I don't go on TikTok.
Yeah,
Um,
I
I
don't
see
understand
TikTok
it.
on Facebook, but I don't have TikTok on my phone, the app. Um,
I have an account, but I don't think I've really done anything with it. My granddaughter was supposed to show me how to do it, but I'm like, I'm not going to do a dance. I'm not doing any of that. So she gave up on me. She was like, she was gonna get up and like do a little dance, and I'm like, not doing that. Show the book, do a little dance. No, so we didn't have a meeting of the minds. So she gave up on me. So my TikTok account's just sitting out there if it's still there.
yeah, I haven't opened one. My philosophy is, um, you know, I could be constantly looking for the next thing
Hmm.
and never really have a foundation.
Hmm.
You can go from one thing to another thing to another thing to another thing, the hot thing. I remember when Clubhouse was hot a few
Yeah.
years ago.
Mhm.
Everybody was talking about Clubhouse and how all this stuff, you don't even hear about it now. So we have almost 100,000 people on Facebook. That's what we've invested a lot of effort. That's what this show is on Facebook.
Yes.
But we've really invested money in that because Facebook makes you pay them if you want to build something on their platform. And that's pretty much all of them now.
Yeah.
My Instagram audience for the is smaller. It's something we're building, but we really have invested a lot in Facebook. And the other ones, like I said, I'm not on TikTok, and it's a couple of more that people talk about, but I think
I just
they
heard
come
about
and go.
Threads. Yeah, I just heard about Threads, and I don't think I'm
Yeah,
gonna join. I'm not doing much with the ones I have. I don't need to add another one.
another one, right? Because you
Um,
stretch yourself so thin that you're not effective, and you can post and all of those, but I just don't see the efficacy in it. I think you should be trying to be a master of everything, is better to be an expert at a few things and to try to be everything.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And they probably say that's old school thinking, but
Yeah, but it's
I am.
true
And
because the stuff comes and goes. Threads is one. I don't really hear much about Threads. It might be people might be doing it, but I don't hear that much about it. And the other one was it Blue Sky or something Sky that people are talking about?
I don't
And
know.
I don't hear, these
Um,
things they come and go. It's like a blip, and
yeah,
so
I'm just gonna focus on Instagram and Facebook and try to do better with with those two before I even think about. I'm not even Twitter or whatever it's called now. I'm not even. I closed that account. I just. Mm-mm.
yeah, I was on Twitter a while back, but I stopped using Twitter 5 years ago before it switched over to X because I found Twitter was because they had a limitation in the number of characters that it was more like for angry comments. It was angry. And so I said in a previous segment, I'm a happy person generally, and I like to stay that way. And people who are constantly angry and mad about something, I don't even want to be, I don't want that to bring me down. I don't want to spend
Yeah,
energy on that.
yeah.
So someone sent her an invite. Tony Benita said somebody sent her an invite to Substack. I've heard about Substack, but I think you have to pay. I think you have to pay to do Substack. I'm gonna see if Tony knows if you have to pay. I think it's like it's I don't think it's free.
Oh,
I think
well,
you have to
again,
pay for that.
I'm not interested at this point.
Me
You know,
either, because I don't pay when like the New York Times or the Washington Post will send me an article, and then when you go to click it, they say you have to subscribe. Well, I won't know about what's in whatever y'all said. I won't know about it because I don't want to pay. I don't want to pay for that.
yeah.
Because I'm gonna hear about it somewhere in a couple of days somewhere else, and I'll pick up the details here and there along the way. That's I pay enough for what I'm already doing.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get back to King David and tell us more about the character of King David. And um, you said you picked King David because you wanted to bring back some of those biblical stories. Did you
Yes.
have a particular formula or method you're using for determining which stories you are going to focus on and what order?
Really, like with Jezebel years ago, because I was always intrigued by her story. Same thing with David. I was really intrigued about David's story in the Bible, because the Bible tells us that he was a man after God's own heart. And so I was always curious about that because I know that he slept with another man's wife. He then arranged to have that man killed, and to me, these were some serious sins, but
Yeah.
yet he was a man after God's own heart. So I really wanted to explore that. And I wanted to explore, just what that meant because I know in my own walk, I feel like I stay in trouble with God. Like, God, I really do love you, but I know sometimes there are choices that I've made, even though I love the Lord, but I made those choices because I wanted to make those choices. And they were not necessarily great choices, but I wanted readers to take away the message that no matter what, that God doesn't leave us, that we leave him, but mostly that no matter how far you fall, you can always, always go back to God, and God's going to always love you and welcome you home with open arms, you know? And to me, that is something that the world needs to hear today, because like you said, people are angry, people are hurting. People are discouraged and feeling hopeless. You know, the suicide rate is incredible. Um, and these are people who've given up.
Yes,
And
and then some of them are young people, but then
yeah,
some of them are not so young. And
right.
we had my neighbor had someone staying with her. The person staying with her was 60. Over the Christmas holidays, she committed suicide.
Yeah.
I
And
was
see,
shocked.
the holidays are hard on people. There's the holiday blues, I think is what they call it.
Yeah,
But I was hoping that King David would encourage that even in everything that he had done, he was able to say that God was still good, even in losing his son. As you know, in the Bible, he married Bathsheba, they had a child, and that child died. And we know that he prayed and fasted and prayed, I think for 6 or 7 days, if I'm not mistaken, praying to God to save that child. And the child died. And so he got up and he ate, and because he knew that despite all of that, that God was still good. And I really wanted to explore that because, just some transparency, I lost my oldest daughter 4 years ago. It'd be 5 years in July. And I didn't understand. I didn't understand because you're not supposed to outlive your children.
right,
And she was my firstborn. She was 40. She wasn't a baby, or she wasn't, she was grown, but she was still my baby.
right.
And I remember saying, God, I don't understand. Why did you take my child? And one night, I guess, well, one morning, early morning, about 3 in the morning, it's like somebody tapped me, and I sat up in bed, and my husband was asleep. And so I'm like, okay, this must be God. And I heard this voice say, "You're angry." And I'm like, "No, I'm not angry." But it's like, you don't tell God you're angry with him. And then the voice was like, "You're angry." And so I went, "Yes, I am. I don't understand. I don't understand. You took my child." I prayed and prayed. I pray over my children. And it made me afraid to lose my other two. And so, but what he said was, "I want you to reframe that. I didn't take her, although she was mine before she was yours." He said, "I welcomed her home."
Mm.
And while it still hurts, I feel better, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. It does.
Because
Yeah.
I don't know, it was just that I welcomed her home.
Mm-hmm.
And it gave me a peace that
Right,
she's with him.
right.
And if I wanted her anywhere, it would be with him.
With him. Right. I agree.
So,
Well,
th-
Jacqueline, we're at the end of our time. We're actually a little bit over our time, and we have our final guest. I want you to show your book cover one more time.
okay.
King David. I have to put it in my shopping cart. So on my next book order, it will come in. I just can't wait to read it. And congratulations on your 100th book. I know this is probably not the 100th. This is the 101st or
101, yeah.
101. Okay. So, well, congratulations and keep on writing because we're not going to let you quit. So, anyway, I'm with Tony
Thank
Bonita about
you.
that.
Thank you for
So,
having me.
yeah, and Happy New Year to you. And
You too.
we'll see you next time.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. Bye bye. Okay, we have our final guest now. And thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate all the comments and everything that have been said online. We did have a book to give away, but because Rhonda's not on, she can't do the back end stuff. We'll do it next week. But it's the beginning of the year, and at the beginning of the year, a lot of times people decide they want to make some financial decisions for the year to help them increase their savings, decrease their debt, or just be more financially sound. So our next guest is Cedric Howard, and his book is called Freedom, a step-by-step guide to wealth and financial independence. So welcome, Cedric, to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you, Gwen. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well.
Okay, so a lot of times people make New Year's resolutions
Yeah.
about their finances, probably their finances, and they're going to the gym are the two most common ones that most people end up breaking them by March. But tell us about a little bit about your background in finance and what made you write this book called Freedom.
Yeah, well, interesting. So, my background in finance actually happened by mistake. By trade, I'm an educator. I've been a higher education administrator now for 31 years.
Okay.
I've been a college vice president for 27 years. And very fortunate to have that as, what I consider to be my W-2 job. That is a job that kind of pays the bills. And because of my role in higher education, I was always responsible for enrollment and student affairs. And so I got the best and worst of the student experience. And so one of the things that I've learned, especially in, with dealing with financial aid and financial awareness of our students, was that they were struggling. Many of them made a decision to come to college and they did not have the financial backing of their families or their communities to really afford college. And that became something of concern for me because if I don't want to give you a college experience and then jeopardize your future because you're in debt for the next 25, 30 years. And that was something of concern with me. And so that was where the actual curriculum was developed called Freedom. And it was really to break you free of the concerns of the lack of preparation for college on the front end. So that was kind of where the curriculum began. But the journey actually began long before then. And very fortunate that my wife raised me well, and been married for 27 years. And a couple of months into our marriage, we were newlyweds, and I never forget it. It was like yesterday. She just yelled. We had this 2-bedroom apartment. And she just yelled, and it's kind of like being a Southerner. When your mother called your full name, you're in trouble. And so my wife called my full name, so I ran and she said, "Well, hey, we have a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" She says, "You told me that you spent $5. You spent $5.16. I said, "Wait a minute. We arguing over 16 cents." She says, "Yes, you spent $5.16. If I ask you how much you spent, please tell me the full amount." And I said, "Let's just break this down a bit. Let's just slow down. We're in the second month of marriage." I said, "Where's this coming from?" And that's when she began to tell me. Now, my wife is an electrical engineer. She has, graduated and was a practicing engineer at the time. But she had fears from her upbringing of being poor. And that was the first argument we had over 16 cents. And I said to her, I said, "Listen, if 16 cents is the worst thing we have to deal with for the rest of our life, I think we're going to have a happy marriage." And so that was where the systems began to be put in place in, tracking financial, our budgets and budget management and understanding how financial systems work. And then I applied my personal experiences of learning how financial systems work into my work experience and develop a curriculum. And then about 8 months ago, one of my mentees said, "Hey, Dr. C, all these years you've been teaching us, these lessons, they refer to them as SETI notes. You really need to go ahead and just write that book and just tell everybody else what we all know, because you have really transformed our lives in many ways. You set us free." You've broken the chains of poverty over our family, just like what's happened to my family. I'm a first generation college student. My wife is a first generation college student. Both of my kids have degrees and they went to private schools and they're all doing well. But that was the kind of the premise behind the book, and how I married a life situation that was a real life situation very early in my marriage with a practical situation that was affecting me in my professional life. And then that led to the curriculum that ultimately became the book that you have before you known as Freedom.
Do you have a copy of your book handy so you can show it on the screen so people
I
can know
do.
what the cover looks like? And so when they go to order it, they'll know, make sure they're ordering the correct book. Because as you know, or you may know, book titles cannot be copyrighted. So
Yes,
so there might be 1,000 books with the title Freedom on it.
that is
So
so true. So
yeah.
true.
So what you mentioned about your wife mentioning, and it really wasn't the 16 cents. It was her upbringing as it relates to money. And a lot of people don't realize that their upbringing as it relates to money, they carry that into their relationships, into the marriage. And it can be positive or negative. Some people, if they grew up like my husband grew up very poor. And so but I didn't. So my husband was very tight, when we first got
Yes.
married. And I had to uh, slowly ease him out of that tightness. I said, if you just hanging on to a nickel that long is not healthy. You're not in that situation anymore. And I didn't grow up like that. So, we have to have some sort of compromise. And now he did teach me the art of negotiation,
Mhm.
because the first offer that he gives is really an insult. Like, you have to really start with that to
Yes.
really
Yes.
get a good price. You should negotiate. So I learned that from him.
Absolutely. And the most important thing is that, especially when you're negotiating it from that perspective, you also realize the person in control is always the person responding. So you give an answer so they respond to you. So now you can take back control of the negotiations
Yeah.
from that perspective. But yeah, it is life experiences. I can tell you from our life. Me being educated, my wife being an engineer, my daughter's now in the medical field. My son is in the military. For me, being the first one in my family to go to college and get a degree, it was transformational. And so, we did work study, we worked, outside of work, whenever we had breaks. And I just realized that struggle is real. And so for us, I had to assure her that this was not going to be the way that we were going to move forward. And so, we've told this story hundreds of thousands of times about the 16 cent. And, so somebody recently, I happened to be a pastor's kid. So we were working with the church in their marriage counseling and the financial part. And someone said, so how did you get her past that? And I said, I told her one thing. I said, I set it down. I said, listen, we're going to get past this because I have EP. And she said, what is MP? I said, I have earning potential and I need for you to invest in my earning potential. And the reason I said that was because I believed in myself. And that's where you have to really begin, with your financial awareness. You have to realize that the greatest struggle that you will ever overcome is the one within yourself. You have to begin to confront how you see things and realize that money doesn't have emotions. Money does not, grip you in those same ways, but it can take hold of your life and it can dictate ways and it can dictate things in your life that you don't even think of. And so, what I oftentimes tell people is, when money is not your master, purpose becomes your God. And so, use your purpose and your values to shape how you interact with money, because money is a relationship. And just like with everything in it that has ship in it, the ship is supposed to take you from one place to another. That relationship is supposed to take you from one place to another. And so have a positive relationship with money and realize that it's not your beginning and your end. It is simply a mechanism, a modality to get you to where you desire that you would like to be.
Yeah, this money or finances is one of the top 3 reasons for a divorce.
Yes.
Mainly because people don't talk about it. They assume a lot of things. I think before they get married, they don't really talk about finances, and they assume some things. A lot of times, one person will be the responsible person, and the other person is, let's say, the fun person. But the fun person is not watching the money, and so that can really cause conflicts. It's all kinds of different scenarios that can cause problems, but you do need to have the same idea about money in terms of savings. How much should you save? Have fun, but it needs to be planned fun. Don't spend your rent money at the club. Things like that. Some
That's right.
people, I've been married twice. So my first marriage was 4 years, and he spent the rent money in the club. But you can't assume anything about a person. You have to talk about these things beforehand.
Yeah.
And see, that was a mistake I made. I assumed that he would be responsible once we got married, even though he was irresponsible before we got married. But I thought that once we got married, that somehow this light bulb would go off, and that doesn't happen. So anyway,
Yeah, you
but
have to engage in those conversations. Have
you
to
do,
engage in those conversations.
you do. Now talk about the higher education piece of it, since you're there. One of my I'm an author as well. Um, my most successful book is about how to go to college debt free with scholarships.
Uh-huh.
And it was nominated for an Image Award when I first came out with it. But I do an update every year. And my daughter went to North Carolina Central, which is an HBCU, out of state because I'm in Houston. And she went totally debt free. She
Yes.
graduated from college with zero debt. And so I wanted the same thing for other people. And so I do the update of the book. It has over 300 scholarships in it, and it has the how-to about how to manage the whole scholarship process and the application of it, how to track the ones you're getting, and so forth. But when she graduated, um, all of the seniors, they went to the financial aid office to see how much they owed and when they were going to start making payments. Well, she went and she didn't owe anything. So all of her classmates owed money. There wasn't a single one of her friends and line sisters and all of that didn't have debt except her. So that really is a life-changing thing for a person. If they can get out of school with no debt, they can start off with a clean slate. It really is life-changing. But tell us about your experience with students at the university where you teach. Where are you teaching? I should ask. Where are
So
you
currently I am over the enrollment of all the community colleges in Seattle.
Oh, you're on
And
the West
so,
Coast. Okay. All right.
yeah. I was born and raised in the South and have been vice president at 5 institutions, and now thought it was important for me to oversee a system. And so I've left the 4-year world and gone into the places where I really feel that I can make a significant difference, and that's at the community colleges, and making sure that I'm being very equitable in the practices and distribution of funds, and using the financial resources as not just a hook, but making sure that they support the retention and persistence efforts of our students, which is something that we lack in many institutions. And so I do agree with you that if you have a system that is in place, it is extremely important to understand that system, and financial, the ability to know where scholarships is an important aspect. So I commend you and congratulations to HBCUs. I happen to attend Florida A&M University, so I'm a Rattler.
Okay, my niece went to A&M. One of my nieces went there.
Went on a music scholarship, so I'm a part of the Marching 100, and so I'm extremely happy now that we're National Band of the Year.
Okay.
From that perspective. So But but for me, what I realized is that for many, especially my generation, so I am plus 50 now, but for our generation, especially those that are Gen Xers, we were told that the golden ticket was to go to college. It was to go to college, not necessarily prepare for it. You're just going to go, and that was the golden ticket. And when we got jobs, no one taught us how to make preparations so that the next generation can go and not have those debt. Because there was a fundamental shift that happened within higher education in the 90s because so many people were going, the states couldn't afford it. And so they start pulling back and students start paying more. And in order to pay more and cover more, they had to take out loans. And so that's where it became incumbent upon me as the person who was the primary, gatekeeper to say, I need to start educating our community. And I need to make sure that they have a financial literacy and a financial awareness program beginning in middle school. Because in middle school determine what your courses and your course of action in high school, which prepares you for ultimately college. And so it was not just incumbent upon me to do it for my kids, because ultimately, when your child becomes a member of my institution, they're technically my child as well. That's the way I see it. And so I developed this curriculum and went into churches, nonprofits, fraternity and sororities. I happen to be a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So 06, to my brothers is out there. I wanted to make sure that I use the platform that I have to educate people in communities so that they have that information and realize that the small amounts that they were given, especially like a state like Florida or other states that have 529 education programs that are penny on the dollars for you to go to those institutions for free. And if you buy them, if you get into them when they're in sixth and seventh grade, by the time they graduate high school, you paid for their 4 to 5 years of school, and pennies on the dollar. But no one was telling people in our, individuals in our community that. And so that's where the curriculum really came into place. And then I began to, as a part of this, many people began to ask me about investments and estate planning. And I realized that in our communities we just lack a lot of just basic knowledge. And so when I wrote Freedom, the actual curriculum, I actually did a step-by-step guide of how to set up a bank account, how to understand the difference between a checking and a savings account, how to look at long terms, savings, how to do investment, what is a mutual fund, I just went through each step and provided definitions for everyone because I wanted to make sure if you were the grandma who was, supporting your grandkids and you only had $15, $20, you had the same information as someone who had gone to a top tier business school as it relates to access to the information. To maximize your ability to support your family. So that was the premise behind the book and what I've been able to do. At every institution that I've served at, I've increased enrollment by at least 10 to 20% within my first 2 or 3 years of being there, primarily because I'm educating people in the community of what it means to not just to attend, but ultimately to be sustainable and to graduate, because one of the reasons that they drop out is because of the financial burden that's placed on them. This is a true fact.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Most African Americans drop out of school not because of grades. They drop out because after their third term, they've reached their loan threshold and they can't afford other loans without the parents signing for them. Mm-hmm. And so when they have to go that Parents Plus loan, that's where the rub occurs. And so from my perspective, if we can begin to mitigate those things on the front end and give guidance and instructions, now as a community, we can create an ecosystem to support our kids and ultimately support the communities that they're going to go back into.
Well, you and I are in agreement on that, certainly, because in several aspects of what you said. One, that it needs to start, you said middle school, and I agree, at high school at the latest, 10th grade, not 12th, because I tell parents with regards to the book that I have, 10th grade is when they need to get the book. They can't wait until senior year, second semester. For one, a lot of the scholarships will be gone. But two, you need to know what the process is before you even start applying. And my book tells them the whole process of applying for a scholarship, what to expect, the whole when are they going to notify you. And it's not something that you can do quickly. But when you were talking about the 90s, it was something that happened in the 2000s as the cost of education started going up. They started putting parents on the hook for these loans. It used to just be the student that was borrowing, but because of the limitations on the amounts the student can borrow, they're putting the parents and the students. So you got two generations on the hook for one degree, which makes no sense whatsoever. And so, but people don't know what they don't know, you know. So it's good to go that you're going into the communities to give this information because the people perish for a lack of knowledge. And this is what happens.
That I mean, that is strictly from the good book. I would say that is more than 2 generations. I would say it's at least 3 generations because it's the parents, it is the students themselves, and because of the financial issues and concerns that come along with the loans, and oftentimes they're defaulting at a higher rate, they can't get homes, and now the next generations are affected. So it is generational.
Yes.
What I consider to be generational curses that is occurring because of decisions that you don't really think about. And so this is something that I say, you know, when I'm dealing with, you know, special ed community, I said, isn't it interesting that on average, 78% of those students that are attending higher education make a determination before the senior year of high school, 78%. In the Black community, that number is 43%.
Okay.
We're not even determining to start the search to go into higher education until the senior year of high school. Now, there's a significant gap there. It's almost 90% for those that have a parent with at least 1 degree. And this almost is like 12 or 13% for those who don't have a parent within a degree. So, I mean, we have a huge, you know, delta there that we need to address. And so, to me, it is neglectful for me to have this information and not to develop a system or process by which to support our community. And that's extremely important for us to be very knowledgeable of, but most importantly, to care enough to say, I care enough about my community that I want to make sure that we're not perpetuating generational curses, that we're turning those curses into blessings, and that we end the cycle, we break the cycle, and we're actually using the mechanism known as higher education as a stepping stone into our future, rather than the stumbling blocks of our past. And that's something we should be very intentional about in everything that we do.
Well, Cedric, we're at the end of our time. So it goes by very fast. And so we have to end the show at 9 and show a copy of your book. Once again, you've given us some amazing wisdom to start off the year with, and it's called Freedom, a step-by-step guide to wealth and financial independence. And thank you very much. You're joining us from the West Coast. You're in the town with my team that didn't make the playoffs this year, but maybe next year. I don't think they're gonna go far with Gino, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you so much for being a guest on the show, and continued success with you with everything that you're doing with financial education for our community.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, have a great night.
All right, be blessed.
All right, well, that's the end of our show for this week, and we will have another amazing show next week on Tuesday night. And hopefully next week our co-host will be on the show with us. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight, signing off. Have a great night, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time.
Thank you for tuning in, and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.